Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a topic that touches so many communities and, frankly, our conscience. The shifting world of immigration and customs enforcement, or ICE.
It's definitely a critical area to watch right now.
Absolutely. And we're not just talking small adjustments here. We're looking at recent information on ICE's, well, unprecedented budget, some really unusual recruitment tactics.
Controversial deportations, too, including sending migrants to third countries.
Exactly. And then there's this whole intense debate, these comparisons being drawn between ICE and historical secret police. It's heavy stuff.
It is. So our goal today is really to cut through some of the noise. We'll sift through news reports, official documents, expert takes.
To give you, our listeners, a clear, fact-based picture of what's actually happening and, importantly, what it implies.
Because this isn't just theoretical. These are policies, actions with real-world consequences for individuals, for families. It pushes us to think about that balance, national security versus civil liberties.
Definitely. It's about understanding the changes in one of the most impactful agencies in the country right now.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Part one. The new landscape of ICE's power and funding. The sheer amount of money involved here is, well, it's something else.
It really is staggering. ICE's budget for 2025, $9.13 billion. That's billion with a B.
Wow.
And get this, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act signed back on July 4th, 2025, gave ICE this record funding. It made it the largest, best-funded federal law enforcement agency, bigger than the federal prison system.
Bigger than the prison system. That's hard to wrap your head around.
And they might not be done. There are reports the agency wants up to $45 billion over the next 2 years, mostly for new detention facilities. That's a six-fold increase from what they usually spend.
A six-fold increase. So what does this massive influx of cash actually let ICE do? What changes does it enable?
Well, one area is recruitment. They're using what some sources describe as mercenary-like incentives.
Mercenary-like. What does that mean in practice?
It means big money. Up to a $50,000 sign-on bonus, plus another $60,000 in college loan forgiveness, specifically aimed at attracting sworn police officers.
So they're trying to draw experienced officers with serious financial perks, but it's not just the money, right? There's also this publicity campaign that's causing a lot of controversy.
That's right, often run by younger political appointees. And here's where it gets really interesting and, frankly, quite disturbing, according to critics.
Okay, give us some examples.
Well, in August 2025, there was a recruitment poster with the caption, "Which way, American man?" That phrase is a direct reference to a book from the 70s.
Oh, I think I read about this.
Yeah, one that depicts Jews, black people, and non-white immigrants as an existential threat. Then in June 2025, during protests in LA, they put out a WWII-style propaganda poster.
Telling people to report foreign invaders.
Exactly. And the campaign uses rap music, President Trump's name. They've even got these vehicles wrapped in colors similar to Trump's private plane. Each one costs about $100,000.
$100,000 per vehicle.
Yep, and they plan for 2,000 more. Critics say this is transforming ICE into a kind of political instrument, a propaganda tool.
So it's not just recruiting officers, it's recruiting them with a very specific, politically charged message.
That seems to be the argument. The Southern Poverty Law Center found DHS, ICE's parent agency, using what they identified as white nationalist and anti-immigrant images and slogans in these materials. Some apparently sourced from anti-Semitic and neo-Nazi publications.
That's incredibly serious. What's the takeaway from critics on this?
The criticism is sharp. They see these tactics as unprofessional, intentionally cruel, promoting white nationalism. It raises huge questions about accountability, the agency's image, and its fundamental role. Is it impartial law enforcement or something else?
Okay, so massive funding, controversial recruitment. This naturally leads to an expansion of power and changes in policy on the ground. Let's talk about President Trump's proclamation 10888. How did that change things?
It declared a southern border invasion. That triggered suspended entry for some, denied asylum claims for people already inside the U.S. if they were deemed part of this invasion.
And it expanded expedited removal, right?
Exactly. Expedited removal is that process where undocumented immigrants can be removed without full court hearings. It used to be more limited, but now it applies to people in the country for less than 2 years if they can't prove lawful entry. That's a big shift.
And then there was Executive Order 14165, ending catch and release.
Right, replacing it with catch and detain. And it also pushed for criminal charges against anyone found aiding undocumented immigrants.
There was another order, too, 14159, authorizing state and local police to act as immigration officers.
Yes, and it allowed the federal government to withhold funds from places that didn't comply. But perhaps one of the most alarming developments for privacy advocates is ICE gaining access to Medicaid data.
Medicaid data to find immigrants.
That's what sources report. Using healthcare data to locate people, described by critics as targeting scared loved ones in their most desperate moments. It raises deep concerns about compassion, privacy, weaponizing healthcare information.
So with all this new power and funding, what does it actually look like on the ground? This brings us to the controversial enforcement actions and the worries about due process. We're seeing videos, reports.
Yeah, reports of masked agents, military-style gear, unmarked vehicles, officers without visible ID making arrests in public.
And the criticism.
Critics call it intimidation, say it lacks accountability. It's led to accusations of, well, kidnapping in some cases.
Are there specific examples in the sources?
There are several really troubling ones. In Massachusetts, agents allegedly held a young girl's face to the ground while arresting her mother. In Virginia, a U.S. citizen, Genzi Machado, was detained at gunpoint by masked agents even though he had his real ID.
A U.S. citizen detained at gunpoint.
Yes. In another case, Daniel or Alana, they apparently detained the wrong guy. An agent reportedly said, "Okay, but we're going to take you anyway."
They knew it was the wrong person, but took him anyway.
That's the report. And in California, agents detained a father at a gas station, leaving his children alone in the truck. There was also an incident where agents allegedly burst into a U.S. citizen's home without a warrant, forced the family outside in their underwear, took phones, laptops, cash.
Without a warrant.
According to the report, yes. And another in Massachusetts where agents smashed a car window with a hammer to pull out an undocumented couple after their lawyer told them to stay inside.
Wow. This goes beyond just aggressive tactics. What about actual wrongful detentions? People held who shouldn't have been.
That's a documented problem. Between 2012 and 2018, data showed 1,480 U.S. citizens were wrongfully arrested and detained by ICE.
1,480 American citizens.
Yes, some held for months, even years. The reasons cited were often incomplete and error-prone databases and lax investigations.
Are there recent examples of this kind of error?
Yes, the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland man who actually had legal protection. He was deported to El Salvador due to what ICE called an administrative error.
An administrative error led to deportation. Did they bring him back?
A judge ordered his return. But El Salvador's president, Bukele, refused to let him leave. And adding to the complexity, the Trump administration questioned the U.S. judge's authority to order his return in the first place.
So he's stuck there because of an error.
Apparently so. There's also the case of Rumeysa Öztürk, a Turkish Fulbright scholar, a PhD student. Her visa was just unilaterally revoked. She was arrested without a warrant, moved to a detention center in Louisiana.
Even though a judge had ordered her to remain in Massachusetts.
Correct. It suggests a pattern, critics argue, of bypassing or ignoring judicial oversight.
And who is being targeted? Is there a pattern there too?
It seems so. Sources mention health workers, people on temporary protected status who care for the elderly and disabled. Newsy readers called their work God's work, yet they're being targeted.
People doing essential care work.
And there's also been a clear rise in deportations targeting activists. This includes legal immigrants, tourists, students, often people who have been critical of government policies or involved in, say, pro-Palestinian advocacy.
And to speed up these deportations, the administration invoked a very old law.
Yes, the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, a wartime law.
From 1798, how is that being used now?
President Trump invoked it to deport individuals designated as belonging to foreign terrorist organizations like the Tren de Aragua cartel without needing to go through the immigration courts.
So bypassing the courts entirely, using a 200-year-old law, did that face legal challenges?
Oh, immediately. The ACLU, Democracy Forward, they sued. Chief Judge James Boasberg issued a temporary restraining order. He even verbally ordered deportation planes already in the air to turn back.
Planes ordered back by a judge? Did they comply?
Well, Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, was quoted saying, "I don't care what the judges think." And the White House response questioned the legality of a purely verbal order, arguing the planes were in international airspace anyway.
So, defiance of a judicial order.
That's how critics frame it. And adding another layer, Attorney General Pam Bondi issued a directive in March 2025, allowing law enforcement to enter migrants' homes without warrants.
Without warrants. Okay, so we have broad authority, aggressive tactics, questionable detentions. Let's move to these international deportations, specifically sending people to third countries.
Right, this is a relatively new and highly controversial practice, deporting migrants to countries they aren't even citizens of.
Like El Salvador.
El Salvador is a prime example. The administration made a deal with President Bukele's government. The U.S. pays $6 million a year for El Salvador to hold deportees in their massive prison, the Terrorism Confinement Center, or CECOT.
CCOT. And who are they sending there?
In March 2025, they deported about 250 alleged members of the Tren de Aragua gang there. But reports indicate that around 90% of them had no actual criminal record in the U.S.
90% had no criminal record but were deported to this terrorism center.
That's what the sources suggest. And it's not just El Salvador. In July 2025, 8 men were deported to South Sudan. Only one of them was actually from South Sudan.
So people are ending up in countries they have no connection to in places like CECOT. What are the conditions like there?
The descriptions of CECOT are horrifying. Sources call it one of the most notoriously inhumane and dangerous prisons in the world.
Inhumane in what way?
It's reportedly designed to deprive detainees of adequate food, water, shelter. Routine violence is fostered. There are reports of physical beatings, heads being forcibly shaved, prisoners forced to watch propaganda videos showing humiliation.
That sounds like torture.
Amnesty International has accused Salvadoran authorities of systematic torture there, leading to deaths in custody from inhumane conditions and denial of medical care. Prisoners get maybe 30 minutes out of their cells daily, no visits, no workshops, no education, no lawyer access, no access to the outside, food served without utensils.
And the Salvadoran government's stance.
Their Minister of Justice said people sent to CECOT would never return to their communities. It's meant to be a place you don't come back from.
This is incredibly bleak. And how is IC even identifying people, say, alleged Tren de Aragua members, to send them there?
That's another major point of controversy. ICE apparently uses a point system. For example, just communicating electronically with a known TDA member could be worth 6 points.
6 points from an electronic communication. Could that be enough?
Potentially enough to get someone labeled and deported under this system, according to reports. They also controversially use tattoos as evidence.
What kind of tattoos?
Things like crowns, flowers, common phrases like real hasta la muerte, which means real until death. Even a crown on a soccer ball, an eyeball. The silhouette of Michael Jordan has even been cited.
Michael Jordan, as gang affiliation.
It sounds bizarre, but yes. There's the case of Jersey Reyes Barrios, a former pro soccer player. He was reportedly deported based on his Real Madrid tattoo and a hand gesture he made.
What do actual experts on these games say about using tattoos like this?
Criminology professors, journalists who actually study Tren de Aragua, they call this approach absurd and naive. They state very clearly that no Venezuelan gang uses specific, universal tattoo symbols for identification like that.
So the methods seem fundamentally flawed, according to experts.
It certainly raises serious questions about misidentification and deporting people based on, well, questionable assumptions.
And then there's this proposal, possibly the most shocking yet, sending U.S. citizens to CECOT.
Yes, President Trump has reportedly explored legal avenues for this. President Bukele apparently offered to let the U.S. outsource part of its prison system to El Salvador.
Outsource imprisonment of U.S. citizens to El Salvador.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio called it a very generous offer, citing cost savings. Trump himself said, if we had a legal right to do it, I would do it in a heartbeat.
But is there a legal right? Can the U.S. deport its own citizens?
Fundamentally, no. The U.S. cannot deport American citizens born here. Naturalized citizens could theoretically be denaturalized and deported, but only if their citizenship was obtained fraudulently or if they have proven ties to gangs or terrorist groups, and even then, it requires a full court process. U.S.-born citizens cannot be denaturalized.
So legally, it seems impossible for U.S.-born citizens.
Correct, but the fact it's even being discussed is significant. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, expressed concern about these deportations generally, noting the complete powerlessness of families seeing relatives labeled violent criminals, even terrorists, without any court judgment.
It paints a picture of an agency with enormous power, using controversial methods, leading to potentially devastating consequences. Which brings us to this comparison, the Gestapo comparison. What does this all mean?
It means we're in a really polarized debate. Using the term Gestapo is obviously incredibly charged, and it's sparking a huge backlash.
What are the arguments against using that term?
People like Roger Rothman and Robert Stein, writing in Newsday, argue forcefully against it. They say it's a serious error, that it trivializes the Holocaust and distorts history.
How so?
Their point is the Gestapo's primary function was coordinating mass murder. ICE's stated mission, however controversial its methods, is enforcing immigration laws and criminal investigations to protect the U.S. They argue for more nuanced discussion, not simplistic and potentially misleading comparisons.
And the Department of Homeland Security itself pushes back on this rhetoric.
Yes, strongly. And you even see figures like Senator John Fetterman, who once called ICE an American Gestapo, now praising the agency, so there's definite pushback.
Yet the comparisons persist, even surge. What does the data show?
Data from the Foundation to Combat Anti-Semitism, FCAS, is pretty striking. Between 2017 and 2024, overall mentions of Gestapo went up 184%, but comparisons specifically linking it to federal law enforcement up 388%.
A nearly 400% increase. When did these comparisons spike?
They correlate with major events. 2018, the zero-tolerance policy, child separations. 2020, racial justice protests, unmarked federal agents. 2022, the Mar-a-Lago raid. And then a record high in early 2025, driven by reports of these masked, unmarked federal enforcement tactics.
And it's coming from both sides of the political aisle.
Yes. The monthly average of posts making this comparison hit 101,000 in early 2025. Compare that to around 18,000 during the Biden years and 19,000 during Trump's first term. It's being used across the spectrum to express outrage.
So what are the arguments for drawing this parallel? Why do critics see similarities with secret police?
Critics like Mehdi Hassan, Lee Morgenbesser, Ruth Ben-Ghiat, they point to several things. They argue IC acts less like traditional law enforcement and more like, quote, Donald Trump's private militia or foot soldiers for a political agenda.
Seeing it as politicized.
Yes, and as a secret police on a militaristic mission turning nonviolent immigrants into fugitives. The core of their argument focuses on operations outside judicial oversight, ignoring court orders, detentions without warrants, using fear as a tool.
Hallmarks they associate with secret police forces.
Exactly. They also point to the use of euphemisms calling a transfer an administrative transfer, or citing vague security concerns to bypass due process. And the visual parallels, plainclothes agents, unmarked cars, sudden arrests without visible badges, they say it looks like something from an authoritarian regime.
So the central point isn't necessarily about matching the scale of Nazi atrocities, but about the methods and accountability.
Precisely. As one analysis put it, it is not the violence that makes a secret police force, it is the absence of accountability. The warning they offer is stark. Authoritarianism is not a switch. It is a series of thresholds crossed, slowly at first, then all at once.
Yeah.
But it's crucial to add the nuance here. Even the critics drawing these parallels usually acknowledge ICC has not reached that level as yet, compared to the Gestapo's role in genocide.
So the comparison is more about a perceived trajectory, a warning.
Yes. It seems the intent for many is less about a direct equation and more about highlighting what they see as a dangerous, slow normalization of impunity and a potential breakdown of constitutional checks and balances.
And there you have it, a deep dive into IC's shifting landscape. We've looked at the huge budget increases, the controversial recruitment and enforcement tactics, the disturbing deportations to places like El Salvador's CE-Cot prison.
And that deeply polarizing debate comparing ICE actions to historical secret police.
It's a lot to take in.
Absolutely. And understanding these complex issues really means you need to look at the facts from all sides, consider the history, and think about the real human impact. That's what we aim to do today, give you that deeper, more nuanced understanding.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. In this age of nonstop information, intense political division, how do you critically assess the rhetoric surrounding agencies like ICE? How do you ensure the lessons of history are remembered, taken seriously, but not trivialized, while still demanding accountability from those in power?
It really comes down to that balance between security and rights, and the ongoing need for civic engagement to shape these crucial policies.